Hello, and welcome to my session on Dynamics 365 Remote Relationship Management. My name is Jason Almeida. I work for Hitachi Solutions as a pre-sale solution architect. My focus is on the Dynamics 365 customer engagement, or what used to be called customer engagement suite of apps, and Power Platform. You can find me at Jason A. Almeida on Twitter and LinkedIn. So feel free to connect if you want to. A little bit of background about me. I've been in the dynamic space for about 8 years now, but I've been a tech enthusiast for as long as I can remember. So anything to do with tech in general, and all years. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for today, ScriptRunner, DQ Global, Proximo 3, Redspar, Agilysys, and Hitachi Solutions, without whom this awesome event would not be possible. So let's get into it, and first understand what remote relationship management is all about, and how to abbreviate that on this slide. Before I go into that into a bit more detail, for today we'll be focusing around the customer service perspective, given the time we have available. So what's RRM all about? And one might argue that since we all work in a digital space, everything is remote anyways. But we would have seen over the last year that the meaning of what remote is has kind of shifted in a way. What used to be effectively a message that you send someone is now a call, and what used to be a phone call is now a video call. And you probably also noticed that you see people a lot more over video or speak to them as opposed to seeing them in person in the past. And unsurprisingly, a lot of this is down to the pandemic that has effectively changed the way we work, and by extension has changed the way businesses operate as well, and how they engage with their customer base. Traditionally in the customer service space, people have engaged through a digital medium, but there were still areas where face-to-face was still key, especially if you think about field service, where people have to go on site to try and fix things, as part of the day-to-day job. But again, looking at the customer service perspective, there's also been a shift in terms of the channels that people have started using more of, and less of in some other cases. And obviously, in person has dropped, but the existing channels have stayed, fairly stable. So things like, social chat, web chat, portals, so on and so forth. But audio and video has gone up. And I did a little bit of research within this area, and I, found some numbers that were really, really interesting. So, year on year since the pandemic, the more prevalent channels such as text messaging, social chat, web chat, portals has gone up only about 4%. People are using it more, but they were already established to begin with. However, audio, and that's audio video calls for live support, as well as real-time video support, have gone up 35 and 42% respectively. So a big spike in demand there. And that is really what this session is about, is to show you some of the capabilities that the Dynamics 365 platform has available, and how you can apply this to engage with your customers better as well. And keeping that customer service lens in mind, we'll be focusing on Omnichannel and remote assistance, or Dynamics 365 remote assist as part of this session. Those numbers that I mentioned earlier on, just in case you want them on a slide. But to go into those two areas that I just mentioned, let's wrap this around with a customer journey, and what might be quite typical in a service context. So we'll focus on someone who has a broken printer. Happens all the time. Printers never work most of the time anyways. But if you've got an issue with it, you may go to a support portal, and hopefully that portal will have a chat mechanism, which me personally I love to use as well, to sort of engage with customer services. Now, given the capabilities of Omnichannel that we'll see in a moment, an agent can pick up this chat request, but also we're going to see how you can extend that to start an audio video call with the customer. So the engagement's a lot more personal as well. And then we'll move on to the next step where the agent can then attempt to try and fix the issue themselves, as opposed to, let's say, trying to find someone from field service to try and resolve this issue. And we're going to look at this using the Dynamics 365 Remote Assist one-time call feature, so they can engage with the customer directly to sort of have a video call to resolve this, and then, perform the video call to then complete and close the case support request. So let's start with Omnichannel, shall we? I really like this animation because it really summarizes its capabilities. But just to put a bit of background, Omnichannel is effectively an extension to the customer service app, and essentially lets you engage customers across several other channels, as you can see in this arc above, going all the way from phone to chat to call browse, web, forums, and IoT as well. So it lets you engage across all of those channels while using some of the existing customer service capability that you would have seen in the first party app. So things like case management, knowledge management, surveys, entitlements, all of those productivity elements are still present. But adding one level further still, and also you would have seen this in the customer service app as well, adding in machine learning and AI as well. So if you've come across the intelligent knowledge-based search or similar case suggestions as well, that works based on a trained model, that is all brought across here as well within the omni-channel experience. Like I said, you can engage customers across multiple channels while having that single view. Since you're in the same application, now traditionally you may have to, jump across into other apps or use, let's say, other tools for telephony to try and engage with form requests. Now it's all in a single solution. And obviously, the data is all stored on the Dataverse, so a common location, so you don't have to go hunting around for information. And I mentioned about the AI and analytics piece as well. Now, focusing further still, if I can just go back to the slide again, I'd like to focus on an extension to this chat capability. Now, Microsoft recently introduced sort of an extension to this, or a sort of enrichment to this feature, where you can now escalate a web chat into an audio video call. Now, this is really great because, chats are well and good, but having that sort of personal feel when you're talking to a customer is second to none almost, and a customer would really appreciate that as well. So we're going to look at, and here I've got a little screenshot of the example where you're in Omnichannel, you're performing a chat, and you can click a button to then initiate an audio or video call, and that is within the same application as well. And sometimes, let's say, if it's something on a phone, you could try and resolve this issue, just over this video call itself. And this is all just driven using, basic configuration in Omnichannel. Now, a couple of things to call out with this is that this, since it works in the browser, obviously there are some browser compatibility considerations there, but it uses your device's camera as well as your microphone to communicate with each other. So the same applies to the agent as does the customer as well. Now we're going to go over to a demo and look at some of this in action. All right, so let's head over to our demo instance, and you can see right away that I've got a chat request from a visitor, but a couple of things to call out. I'm in the Omnichannel for Customer Service model-driven app, and I'm in this this workspace experience that lets me have multiple chats at the same time. So let me hit accept to start this chat session and respond to this customer. So I'm going to use the quick reply feature that automatically has pre-filled responses along with personalization features, and I'm going to put that in there and respond to the customer. Now, I know Tricia Sinclair is doing a session on Omnichannel as well. So if you want to find out more information about how this is configured, definitely go and watch her session. And another shout out to EY as well, who's another Omnichannel advocate in the community. So I've got a response from the individual. So let me respond to them. So now I'm going to escalate this or elevate this to an audio video call. Now, one of the big benefits with this is you can provide a more personalized service. So in order to do this, I can navigate through the ellipsis within the chat session. Now, and I can see there's a video call or a voice call or a video call option available to me. Now, this uses the inbuilt browser capabilities to perform a voice or video call. So your browser needs to have the relevant permissions in order for this to work. I'm going to initiate the video call.
Hi there.
Hello. Can I start by taking your name, please?
Sure, it's Mrs. M.
I found you. So what's the problem with your printer today?
I'm not sure how, but I seem to have broken it. Basically, every time I try and turn it on, it makes a rumbling noise and then it just stops. It just doesn't work.
Okay, so this sounds like an issue specifically with the printer itself. So I may have to take a closer look at the printer, but let me start by logging this case in our system so we don't lose sight of it.
Sure.
Okay, I've created a case in our system, and what I'm going to do is I'd like to take a look at this over video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a link to join a call on your phone, and you can point the phone at your printer, and we can take a closer look at it. That sound good?
Yeah, sounds brilliant. Thank you.
All right, I'll send you a link in the chat in a moment, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
So to summarize what we've seen how a chat that comes into Omnichannel can easily be elevated into an audio video call for a more personalized service. Now, there is an additional sort of elevation option available within Omnichannel, and that is call browse, which is effectively screen sharing, and it's another escalation route via the chat channel. And in order for this to be implemented, you effectively need a third-party solution such as ScreenMeet installed on your environment, and you can configure Omnichannel to effectively, provide web-related support directly from the Omnichannel app. Now, on the arc of channels that we'd seen, there was a phone call symbol on there. Now, prior to the introduction of Omnichannel Voice, which is the next element I'd like to quickly talk about, you would have to have used the channel integration framework in order for you to integrate any telephony solution into Omnichannel. Now, with the introduction of Omnichannel Voice, which is a dedicated voice channel, it truly completes the Omni offering. And it obviously means that you no longer need to integrate with a third-party telephony solution via SIF. Now, one of the additional features that is brought along with Omnichannel Voice is the ability to integrate with Power Virtual Agent to provide IVR or interactive voice recognition capabilities, along with call routing to the right team as well. Now, if all of this sounds like a lot of features for just a single name, it is because a lot of this capability is built on top of the newly introduced, which is currently in preview, Azure Communication Services. Now, Azure Communication Services was released into preview September last year, and effectively takes some of the best bits that you would have seen with Teams and also with customer service. So with Teams, you've got all of the audio, video calling and messaging, and some of the live chat capability within Omnichannel. and Microsoft have added a ton of additional features, which we'll have a look at in a second, to effectively create the Azure Communication Services capability that is now the bedrock of Teams and what will be the omnichannel voice ability as well. Now, this is a fully managed communication platform that's available directly from Microsoft itself, and it includes things like, as the name suggests, voice calling, chat as well. Now includes SMS capabilities and the ability to integrate this into mobile and desktop apps as well. Looking at a bit more detail into some of these features, this is a screenshot I got from the Microsoft press release. What's interesting is the SMS capability. It's great to see Microsoft step into this space, because previously Omnichannel had to be configured using another messaging provider such as Twilio, for example, but it is great to see Microsoft now offer that as standard. Additionally, you can now provision phone numbers, much like if you've used Twilio in the past. You can provision phone numbers through Azure Communication Services as well, but since this is in preview and limited to the United States, you need to be in the US in order to set this up. But it is something to definitely keep an eye in the ear out, and it's planning to sort of make its way generally towards the summer of this year, as far as I'm aware. Now, moving this on to the second part of what I wanted to show you today, and that is Dynamics 365 Remote Assist. And as the name suggests, it is a remote assistant, and part of the session title today. And effectively, Remote Assist allows you to engage with customers anywhere in the world, since it's remote. And all you need is either the Remote Assist mobile app or Microsoft Teams, in either using an iOS and Android app, or if you've got one, a HoloLens to be able to view this in augmented reality as well. Some of the really useful features that Remote Assist brings along with it is, you've got heads up via HoloLens or hands-free calling, and it allows first-line workers to collaborate with each other on PC, on mobile, so on and so forth. And because it includes augmented reality capabilities, as you see on the screenshot on the left, it really allows you to provide guidance and a very interactive experience when you're working with each other. And since Remote Assist, now going back into a little bit of history, initially started out as a sort of extension to field service, you can natively tie in any Remote Assist calls to a field service asset, or also as part of the field service experience, create phone call records and notes directly from within the Remote Assist app. Now, back onto that background a little bit more. As I said, that previously started as part of field service, but now it is an app in its own right and exists independently as a model app when you look in the Dynamics 365 app selector. Previously, it was only limited to internal support, where both users required a Remote Assist license in order to use the functionality, whereas now they have recently introduced what they call the one-time calling feature, which is really impressive. I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. One-time calling, as the name suggests, it lets you perform a one-time call, and the key thing here is that it allows you to engage via the Remote Assist app with an external user, and that external user doesn't need to be a member of the organization. They can be a regular individual, a member of the public, and all they need is a mobile device in order to be able to join this call. Now, on the left, you can see the Remote Assist app, where you can generate this one-time call link, and once you generate this link, you send it off to your customer, and they can access this link on their mobile phone, download the Remote Assist app, and join this call on a one-time basis. Now, from the perspective of the supporting individual, you will join it from, let's say, a Microsoft Teams call, where you can still have all of those augmented reality interactive features that you saw on the screenshot previously, but the customer has access to this as well. So it really simplifies this whole remote support scenario, and you're no longer dependent on having a field service agent go out on site to try and resolve this. So let's have a look at this in action in a quick demo. Now that the case has been created, we can progress it through the business process flow as you normally would and see how remote assist can fit quite neatly into this process to then complete the case. So we'll go through the business process flow. I'll move past the identify stage. And now, normally in a traditional field service scenario, you may want to say, okay, it requires a work order. So you might flag that as yes, specify the incident type, so on and so forth. But since we're going down the remote assistance route, I'm going to check the flag that says attempt remote assistance. And this is now going to present me with an additional stage as part of the business process flow. Now, when I go on to the next stage, I need to save my record first. Let's do that. And now, when I go to the next stage, there isn't a record to start with. But what I can do here is I can create a new one-time call record where I can then generate the link to send over to Mrs. A. So let's hit the create button. And it now takes me to the a new one-time call screen. Now I'll just specify a name. So printer support call. And hit save. Now, as we'd seen on the slide earlier on, the setup a call as part of the one-time call feature presents you with a screen and a couple of buttons that you click through. So you start by the step one, which is generate a call link. But before you click the button, you have the option to modify the call settings to pick the time and date and the duration of the call, as well as the title. Although they are defaulted to the current time and date and a 15-minute call. And once I click on the generate a link button, it will push out a couple of pop-ups where it's generating this Teams remote call link and populate the instructions that can be shared with the customer. Once these are copied, so I can click the copy button to copy these instructions, I can then click on the join the call button to then jump into my Teams call. So once I click on this button, it's going to pop out a window and take me straight into my Teams application for me to join my call. There we go. So we have Mrs. A waiting in the lobby. So I'm going to admit her to join this call. Hello, thanks for joining the call. And yes, I can see the printer over there. Let me start by quickly hitting the record button on this call, and it helps us with training later on. Okay, so I'm recording the call now. So I'd like you to start by just lifting up the main sort of element of the printer. So just hold it over there and just lift that up, please. Yep. Thank you. Okay, and now if I can just clear my screen, and I'd like you to hook your finger over there and pinch that area there and lift up that lower panel as well, please. Aha, I think I see the problem there. Well, hopefully that should fix the printer. And you can just close it back down again and power it up, and it should work fine, I would say. You're welcome. I'm going to stop the recording now, and if you have any issues, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you. Bye. Heading back into the Omnichannel app in Dynamics, now that we've completed the call, we can move past the one-time call stage and move back into the case to now effectively complete our call. Now, as part of this particular demo, I've added an additional flag, which I will explain the rationale behind in a moment, but I'm going to check this flag to yes and save the record. And we can now say that this case is effectively completed by clicking the resolve case, in good old-fashioned customer service style.
So to summarize, we saw how a case created within Omnichannel neatly dovetails into the remote assist one-time call feature or via the business process flow. We saw how I joined the Teams call and the customer joined via the remote assist app, and how I use some of the augmented reality features to resolve the printer issue and then proceed to then closing the call. A couple of features I'd like to call out that we saw on that Teams call itself. To start with, you could clearly see how I use some of the augmented reality features, such as the dropped waypoints, as well as the drawing feature. Now, both of these maintain their spatial awareness. So if the customer moves their phone, it will still maintain those points in space so that the customer knows what you're pointing at. The key call out here is that it is device specific in terms of its compatibility. As long as you've got a relatively new Android or iOS phone, you should have no issues using some of the AR capabilities. However, all the devices may struggle. However, you can still actually join the call via the remote assist app. The only thing you won't be able to do is use the AR features. So effectively, you still let the customer join a video call, but you're limited to screenshots and annotations that you send them via the chat. So that's something worth remembering. Now, through this, we didn't really get a chance to see the Remote Assist mobile app, but from a one-time call experience, the customer just needs to enter their name and then join the call. However, in a scenario where Remote Assist is used by an internal user, let's say as part of the field service process, they have a slightly different experience and access to a few more elements within the Remote Assist app. So they can see all of their customer assets as a list and then access any one of those to perform a call about it. They can see all of their meetings, and these meetings are pulled in from their Outlook and a history of any calls, or they can choose to get in touch with a contact to call them. And these contacts are internal to their organization who have a remote assist license. Now that we've seen some of the features, let's try and understand the underlying architecture, because it is quite interesting and impressive what Microsoft have done here. So I've got the high-level architecture on the screen here, and what you can instantly see is how Remote Assist, that's in the middle right there, leverages several existing Microsoft capabilities across the stack, and most of which you probably are familiar with, to then create this single experience. And the app is effectively built on the Unity 3D engine. It uses Azure Active Directory for authentication, Teams, as we saw, for the chat presence and running those calls as well. In the field service context, you saw a screenshot of the access to customer assets. And there is an element where you can tie a call to a work order as well. But that's as part of the field service experience. And finally, you saw me hit the record button on the actual call itself. Now, when the recording is completed, it is stored in my OneDrive for Business. And there are some options there from an automation standpoint as well. Now, throughout this process, I've talked about how there are sort of two pathways for Remote Assist. One is as part of the field service experience, and the other one is part of this one-time call experience. And there are a few considerations that you've got to bear in mind as part of this, and there are key differentiators between the two. So let's go through some of those right now. The first item is that when someone in a field service context creates a remote assist call to an internal user, they have the option to auto capture any notes that you do in the chat as part of that call are captured against the work order. Additionally, a phone call record is created within in the Dataverse to effectively log the fact that this call existed between these two internal users and the duration as well. Now, however, in the one-time call context, instead of creating phone call records in the Dataverse, it creates Outlook calendar invites instead. So when I generated that link, it actually creates an Outlook calendar invite with the link along with the duration, instead of creating phone call records in the database. So it's a key differentiator there. And this actually has a downstream impact, which I'll cover in a moment. Another important consideration is that the one-time call entity is actually locked down. It cannot be customized. However, what you did see on the demonstration was that it can be hooked up to a business process flow. So there is an element of flexibility there for you to fit that into your existing business process. Now, the differences in the calls that I mentioned earlier, this sort of results in a one-sided dashboard. Now, if you remember on my Remote Assist mobile model-driven app, we saw a link that showed the Remote Assist calls dashboard. Now, this dashboard shows you phone call records that were performed by Remote Assist. But since only field service calls are created as phone calls in the database, you kind of end up with only a one-sided view. Again, there is a workaround for that as well. The next consideration is that from a Remote Assist app perspective, one-time call recipients do not need to sign up to anything. They download the app. It's about 60 to 70 meg if memory serves, and all they need to do is put in a name and then they hit the join button to join the call. And once they press that button, they're then presented with the customer service agent is presented with a prompt to let them join the call. And finally, there are a couple of additional environment considerations in order to make the one-time call feature work, and these are that the organizing user needs to have an Exchange online calendar, which kind of makes sense since calls are created as Outlook calendar invites. And second of all, the organization needs to enable anonymous users to join Teams meetings. Again, makes sense since you're having an external member of the public join a Teams call. So very useful set of considerations there. Moving on to some of the automation options, and you would have seen some of these in play through the demo. The first of which is, the obvious one, which is you embed the one-time call entity into the business process flow. Now, this is quite simply just adding it as a stage. There is no relationship that you can create between the entities. However, if you go into one of those previous one-time call entity records, you will still be able to see it on the business process flow, and you would be able to drive business logic off that business process flow entity record because it would preserve the stage entity record IDs. Now, these are two other automation options worth considering. Since one-time calls do not create data-verse phone call records, you could use the CDS connector plus the Microsoft Graph API to effectively connect to the user's Outlook calendar and pull those Remote Assist calls and create them as phone calls in the database. So a simple but very useful way for you to basically be able to create those phone call records in the database. Now, the phone call entity does have a couple of Remote Assist specific fields, one of which is the Remote Assist call ID, and the second of which is the device that is used to connect to the Remote Assist call. And both of these fields drive the Remote Assist calls dashboard, which we'll see on the subsequent slide. And finally, I talked about some of the OneDrive for Business recordings that are created and stored by Remote Assist. Once again, using Microsoft Flow, I've got a sample screenshot there where you can use the CDS connector plus the OneDrive for Business connector and SharePoint to basically lift and shift any recordings from OneDrive for Business into SharePoint associated with the particular case record in Omnichannel. Now, in both of these examples, there are simple Power Automate flows that can be built to achieve the desired outcome, and all of the connectors allow you to access the requisite data in order for you to do this. And Moving on to a topic I briefly mentioned, the remote assist calls dashboard. Quite simply, it is a dashboard that aggregates all of those remote assist calls, but as I mentioned, it can be a bit one-sided. However, if you create those phone call records with the ID and client type populated, they will then be updated on this dashboard accordingly. Now, a couple of key call outs on this dashboard. You can see the total number of calls, the total duration of all of those calls, the average call duration as a metric, and the total number of unique callers, as well as trend lines of calls over durations and times. Additionally, it will also pick up the user's location to show you the geolocation of the users making and receiving the calls as well. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to me speak about Dynamics 365 remote relationship management. Just to summarize the big ticket items that we saw some of the really cool features within Omnichannel and how you can elevate some of those standard chat capabilities. We talked about Azure Communication Services and how that will effectively level up the existing Omnichannel capability, and finally how Remote Assist can tie into your existing business process flow to then support your customers directly. Once again, I'd like to thank the sponsors for making Scottish Summit happen, and for you guys for listening to me speak. Don't forget to use the hashtag Scottish Summit 2021 tag on any social media posts you make. And this session will be uploaded to YouTube after 14 days. So thank you and goodbye.